what are the tools in pulsation that help the harmony process?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so let me talk about muscular armoring first of all, because that we would have to understand what that is before we go to how to work with it. But Wilhelm Reich was really the first, he was a Freudian, so he followed many of Freud's understandings, and Freud did talk about libido and life energy and sexuality, and he did talk about that stuff, but it became just hard to manage all that energy, so they stopped talking about it, kind of. And Wilhelm Reich was a young student when Freud was very old, and so he was full of energy and full of enthusiasm, and Freud really gave his blessing to Reich, because Reich was so brilliant and innovative in his thinking about psychoanalysis. And so Reich started to contemplate what is it that makes us neurotic? What is it that makes us crazy? What is it that makes us, develop these different personality styles that are just self-destructive, for instance? And so he, for a long time, worked with people lying on the couch, and he would listen to them, but then he started to notice that while they were talking, they stopped breathing. Or if they started to feel an emotion, something came up and got stuck in their throat, and they were choking down their tears. And so he started to understand that feelings and emotions are also, they can either be expressed through the action of muscles, or they can be repressed, they can be swallowed down. Speaking of swallowing, I have to swallow a sip of water. So the idea is that we are, throughout our childhood, conditioned in all different ways. As we grow up, maybe some of us have a really traumatic childhood, maybe others have an okay childhood, but one way or another, we all come away from childhood, birth and childhood, with certain emotional baggage, stuff that were feelings and emotions that we couldn't express at the time, and so we swallowed them down. And the act of swallowing down our emotions, it takes a certain tension in the muscles to keep containing, the anger that wants to pop out. But if you tighten your jaw and you kind of you can actually hold the feeling back through tensing the muscles and holding the breath a little bit. And Reich started to notice that happening in his patients. So he started to make the connection between emotional repression and tension in the body. And so somebody would start, anger would start bubbling up, and they'd be getting tighter, and he would say, hit the mattress, and they would start to hit the mattress, and he'd say, now shout and scream, and he would make the person, express that emotion that they'd been swallowing down, and then afterwards they actually felt much better. And they could breathe again, and they could relax a little bit more. And the same with tears, like somebody's tears starting to come up, and the sound is trying to get out, but it is being swallowed down. And so Reich would come in and touch the throat a little bit and say, breathe a little bit more, and make a certain sound. And suddenly they would burst into tears, and the feeling would release, and a relaxation followed in that. But the point that I'm making right now is that he discovered how tensions in the body, how emotions that we're unwilling or unable to express are repressed inside and held inside through muscular tension. And Reich called this muscular tension muscular armoring, you know, indicating that it was hard and immobile, not completely immobile because something is moving, but rigid. And so how we help a person to work with this armoring in the body. And the word de-armoring I don't like so much because it kind of implies that we rip it off, you know, the armoring, we take it off, you know, in some forceful way. But I like to think of it as loosening the muscular armoring so that breath can come more freely and feelings can be felt naturally and expressed honestly and authentically. In pulsation, do we work with the muscular armoring in such a way that helps it to release what it's holding and to get looser then. So one of the things we do is we work with breathing. Breathing it does several things. It starts to move energy in the body. And when I say energy, I mean what we sometimes refer to as life energy or life force or sexual energy or joyful energy. It's breathing moves this stuff inside of us that actually gives us the feelings, the emotional feelings that we feel in the body when we're sad or when we're angry. And so the breathing starts to mobilize a charge of energy in the body. And because one of the ways that we prevent ourselves from feeling is we hold our breath. So people are breathing, and suddenly you start to notice that they're not able to breathe in anymore, or they can't breathe out anymore, and it gets stuck in the throat, and you can start to see how the body holds against the breathing. So breathing starts energy moving, and as more energy moves through the blocks, through the repressions that are stuck in the body, and we have them in the pelvis and the belly and the diaphragm and the chest and the shoulders and arms and our mouth and our throat and our eyes, there are all these groups of muscles that we call segments of muscular armoring that do the work of holding the energy inside, the repressed emotional energy inside. So when we breathe and we start to move more energy through these tight muscles, they start to not be able to hold on as good as they could. And a feeling might start to emerge, you know, just sometimes somebody will just burst into tears after breathing for a little while. Or suddenly, you know, go into paralyzing fear, and it's because the energy that's moved with the breath starts to activate those blocks and break through, bubble through in a way. And so if the armoring is not too tight, then the person will feel the emotion that is sitting there in the body. But often the tensions are so old and so chronic and so strong that we just see them in the body. We can, you know, see the throat tight and the eyes get big. So you can actually see the blocks as they appear in the body. So seeing that, we start to massage or to, you know, loosen or invite the person to move their body so that, so that the tensions can, you know, by moving, if you start doing this, if you're holding back anger, the very thing you don't want to do is hit your fists. You know, you want to keep your shoulders tight and you want to hold your breath. But if I say to you, okay, now hit your fist into the mattress, you can't hold on to it any longer. It just erupts like a volcano because those muscles just can't hold it any longer. Do you get the idea how it works? And so breathing, movement, sounds. Let the voice become engaged. If it's anger, whoa, let it come. If it's fear, let it be felt. Let the scream come. If it's tears, just allow that, give in to those tears. Using words, I invite people towards feeling. So that's actually an important technique. That's not a hands-on technique, but it's a very important part of in pulsation, of being and inviting, accepting presence, where people feel safe to open. So, movement, sound, eye contact, to show the feeling, to come out through the eyes and say, yes, I'm angry, or my God, I'm so scared, and just to admit by showing through the eyes or saying the word, I'm scared. So those are some of the ways, some of the what we could call techniques. And, we can learn where to touch and how to touch, but for the work to really be effective, there are many other things besides knowing what to do that are important in the work, like being able to be with somebody in full empathy as their heart is breaking, out loud, or to receive the waves of rage that have been repressed for so many years. It's like, that's also a kind of, I'm not just standing there like a dead person while someone is screaming at my face, I'm saying, yeah, okay, let's feel that. So it's an encouraging attitude that encourages whatever quality is arising in the person. It's like I never have an idea about where the session is supposed to go. I just want to see how it unfolds, and then I'll help it along a little bit with my touch, with my words, keeping them breathing. So, yeah, I don't know, those are some of our techniques.
Thank you.
I want to say something right now, though. So, what I want to do is talk just briefly about the human presence and the importance of that in any kind of emotional work or body work or any kind of work with a person, and that what's more healing than any technique that you can do that you learned about in a book or somebody showed you how to do, what's the most important is to be able to be a listening, accepting presence for whatever arises, and so it's a kind of loving presence that actually does the healing, although, talking is also good because you have to get your life in order, but it must be, open-hearted and compassionate, and that's why we also insist in pulsation that people do their own work, that they get their experience so that they learn how to feel not only themselves, but then by extension other people. Then we can train really good therapists, pulsation therapists. But it's not to do with just the technique, but also one's humanity. Yeah. So, just wanted to throw that in.